Gabe, how you doing, man?
Really good, man. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited for this.
Thanks for being here. I was fascinated by you were on Gunrunners Radio. I was
Mhm.
fascinated by your interview. I was even more fascinated, when our producer Rich brought up your story. I thought, oh my gosh, this is really fascinating. And then I couldn't be here when you
Right.
were on
What were
Gunrunners
you? I
Radio.
remember you weren't here. It was me, the host, the lady, and then the guy that looks like from the Dirty Jobs.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
He looks
yeah.
just like Mike Rowe.
That's hilarious you say that because he kind of sounds like him too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was back east. I was actually in the Midwest in Wisconsin, but
Oh.
I watched the interview, and I was visiting my dad, and he and I watched your interview, and I was like,
Okay.
oh, Dad, I really wanted to interview him. I really wanted to interview him.
All
So
right.
thank you for coming back and letting me interview because I
No
think it's
problem.
fascinating. So let's talk a little bit about. Okay, so let's start with what do you do? What is your job, and what do you actually do?
I'm a comic book creator. I don't like the word creator because only God creates, but that's what we're called. I'm an illustrator. I've been drawing since I was a little kid, so I draw comics, I color them, but I'm also quite a good writer too. So I write them also. So I've gone fully independent. But I started drawing when I was a little boy in the back of my grandparents' Mexican restaurant back in like 1982 or 83, but when I was preschool age. And I was obsessed with Star Wars and space battles. So I would draw Star Wars space battles on the restaurant's butcher paper. I'd unroll it and just draw a huge space battle. So those are the first drawings I remember doing when I was little. Long story short, I saw Jim Lee, who was a San Diego guy for like 30 years. He's a VP at Warner Brothers now, Chief Creative Officer at DC Comics. He's like the Michael Jordan of comic books, the most successful guy drawing comics of the last 30 years. I saw his work in 1992 or 1991, something like that. X Men issue one. They relaunched X Men in the 90s from the 60s. It sold over 8.5 million copies. It's the highest selling comic of all time. And there was a wave then. You know the housing boom from the early 2000s?
Yeah.
There was a comic book boom from
Hmm.
88 to 94.
Yeah.
And just comic books were selling in the millions. People were making money hand over fist. Comic book stores were opening everywhere. It was the boom of our business. So
I remember that.
you,
There really was a boom. I remember I was going to high school right in those years. I was in Hawaii, and there was a place called Jellies, and
all
that
right,
was like the comic book store.
okay,
And yeah, you're right. It was everywhere. I remember like The Crow. Was started out as a comic book,
oh,
made it into a movie.
right.
The Punisher. I was obsessed with the
Jim Lee got
Punisher.
his real big fame on The Punisher back in the 80s. A good friend of mine, Mike Barron, wrote a lot of those. But
So why was there a boom? What happened? What?
I there was a speculator market. I think they started doing a lot of gimmicks, like a lot of covers, a lot of glow in the dark cover and this cover, and they would seal books in a bag and put a trading card in it. So then kids would buy twos, like one I can open, one I can save shut.
Mm,
And there was a big collector like thing like that caused a boom. But also I think it was the zeitgeist of 80s action. You're coming off of like Rambo, you're into Van Damme right now, right? Kickboxers just come out, Terminator's there, Terminator 2 is there. And we're in like the zenith of male macho action. And comic books were reflecting it. Comic books were over the top, and people had 5 guns and
yeah.
50 bandoliers, and the gun had 9 barrels on it. And it was just the kind of things you love when you're like 10, 12, 13, up to 15 years old, whatever. So it just really caught the zeitgeist at the same time those action movies were they're just exploding, pun intended. I think the comics caught that same wave. And the art was some of the best in a generation. You had Jim Lee, the guy I mentioned, and 6 other guys working at Marvel, and they were selling millions of copies. And they realized something that I realized working there too. Marvel's making all the money, and we're doing all the drawing. So they
Mm.
broke away and formed a company called Image Comics. And it inspired me. I think I was a freshman in high school in 93. And I was so inspired to learn of this that, oh, they're going to step out on their own thing and not be afraid of these companies. And, like, because the big companies will treat you like, what are you going to do without me? And it's like, oh, they just made the third biggest comic book company of all time after Marvel and DC.
Wow.
And it's still around to this day, Image Comics. And those 7 founders, they each started their own studios, and they were all independent. They all had autonomy, and so it was a great example there. So that's what got me into comics.
So
Was
what were you? So being, when I bought comics, I wanted to see cool fight scenes. I wanted
right,
to see drawings of cool guns. I was really into guns.
right,
I wanted the Punisher to say something that I could quote. You know what I
right.
mean? Like his big, whatever. As an illustrator, somebody who was interested in the art, what comics were you into? And when you bought a comic, what did you look at? Or
To
look for, I should say.
To me, it's all about the illustration. I love to draw, as I told you. I don't remember when I started drawing. That's just how God made me. I have to draw. I love to draw. So to me, comic books are about the art. There's an argument in our business. I think some of the writers get a little hurt feelings because they can't draw. Most of them, almost all of them. I'm one of the few people that's a good writer and a very good illustrator, but that's not common in our business. A lot of guys are really good at drawing, and they think they can write, and they cannot write. And the writers know they can't draw because that you can see right away. Most of the writers can't draw like I can, but to me, it's all about the art because if you take the art out of a comic book, it's just a novel. What makes a comic book uniquely a comic book is the drawings. That's what defines it. And you'll have the writers argue that with you all the way, but they're just wrong. Comic books are about the illustration. So I look for anything with over the top action and beautiful women and heroic good guys and flying like off the page. That, drawing in foreshortening. Do you know what foreshortening is? Foreshortening is okay.
Force shortening?
F-O-R-E,
Okay.
foreshortening. So this is like my arm is up to you like this. That's on a flat plane. If I go like that,
Gotcha.
that's foreshortening. To draw this is very hard.
Yeah.
That's why Egyptian drawings are like this. Because it's very simple to draw things from the side because it's an icon. It isn't really three-dimensional. So one of the most important skills of comic books is being able to put a figure on that x-axis, the XYZ axis, and really twist them three-dimensionally because they're still images. So you have to pack as much energy as possible into a still drawing. How do you do that? Extreme foreshortening and the extreme ranges of motion. Here's a quick drawing tip, and then I'll move forward on this. If you're going to draw a punch, you don't draw this, like the middle of the action. And for those of you just listening, my hand is just by my head. You draw either all the way back or all the way on the follow through. Those are the only two that are acceptable to draw because it's a still picture. And what's going to have the most energy is the very beginning or the very end of the motion.
Interesting.
So to me, it's all about drawing.
You said that, and like a half a dozen half a dozen memories from comic books went through my head. You're absolutely right. I'd never noticed it. Now you say that.
Right. Well, any good art is seamless. You don't notice it. That's how good it is. You know what I mean? Like people like me who do this for a living, we think about all the technical aspects. Yeah. I don't expect the viewer to understand it or be educated on it. I expect them to just enjoy it. And that's why it's important to me to be as good as my craft as possible. Just this week, I was looking at doing like atelier life drawing classes in Encinitas. I'm 45 years old. I've been doing this for like almost a quarter century. I was like, I should go to some life drawing classes and get better. Get better drawing human bodies because you should never stop. It's my duty to be as good as possible at this. Just never stop practicing, never stop learning. So to me, it's all about drawing. I love, love, love drawing.
So it went through this bubble. They even made a couple of really horrible movies in the early 90s. Based on comic book. Right. Captain America was a horrible. There was a horrible.
He had rubber ears in the 91. If you look at the costume, instead of just cutting a hole and having his ears come out, he had rubber ears.
I don't even remember. I remember seeing the movie. It was really horrible. There were a Punisher version.
Dolph Lundgren, who can do no wrong. I love Dolph Lundgren.
Well, he was great, but that wasn't. It was Punisher by name only. I remember seeing the movie, going, "What the hell was that? That had nothing. What was that? Was the Punisher? Like that wasn't the story."
It was Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher.
Yeah, and there were a couple others. The Crow was not bad.
I love the Crow. Can we talk about Brandon Lee for 1 second?
Sure.
He would have been one of the biggest action movie stars. He had it. You know what I mean? He could do the martial arts. He had the pedigree from his father's name, Bruce Lee. He was a better actor than his father. He was more handsome. And I do a Wednesday night show on my YouTube channel, just Gabe Eltaeb is my name, called Double Impact. And all we do is review 80s and 90s action movies. And it's improv comedy mostly. Yeah. We're usually just joking around, but we love these movies. And for the last month, we've just been doing Brandon Lee movies because he only has 5. And then he died, tragically on the set of The Crow. But we love Brandon Lee, man. Do you think he would have been a star? Because I think so. He was right there because The Crow was a hit.
So I actually, my older brother went to college with Shannon Lee.
Oh.
And I actually got to meet her a few times.
Okay.
And so I paid close attention, and I completely 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I got to meet his mom. They did a karate tournament. I think it was, I don't remember if it was exactly a karate tournament. There was some kind of, martial arts tournament, or not tournament,
exhibition?
Like a convention, it was like a Bruce Lee themed convention. They did it years ago, maybe 20 years ago, and I got to go to that kind of, so I met his mom, and so I did pay attention to him enough to know, just from that kind of distant connection, I paid attention to him enough to know that, yeah, he was really talented.
Right.
He was very intelligent. He you know, his father was also a philosopher,
Right.
And I know, you know, he followed in those footsteps too. And it was really tragic.
Yeah. One of my favorite memories growing up was this thing called Stupid Movies. Me and my buddy started watching those kind of action, 80s, 90s action every Friday, Saturday night, middle school and high school in the early 90s. And one that was on heavy rotation for us was Showdown in Little Tokyo with Dolph Lundgren,
Yeah.
Tia Carrere, and Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
And I could see a sequel to that where Brandon Lee's brother shows up, and it's none other than Dean Cain, another Asian part white guy. You know what I mean? They could have been brothers. So Dean's a very good friend of mine. So
is he?
Absolutely. We'll talk about Dean in a minute.
He of course played Superman. One thing, and the reason I was kind of going down this road is there. I don't know. So you know, they did these great movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Late '90s they started doing really good. Maybe early 2000s they started doing more Marvel and DC movies.
Oh,
really
sure,
good,
sure.
Right?
For a minute they were good.
I don't even know. Have they gotten bad?
I don't watch them. I hate them.
Okay. Oh well.
I liked them up until The Dark Knight.
They
like
released
2008.
Oh yeah.
I don't like the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That version.
I hate it.
That version of Batman I thought was phenomenal. Christian Bale
with the Joker. That
oh
was
gosh,
amazing.
That was truly amazing.
But all of the Iron Man and Avengers with their little cutie pie, like smart aleck remarks.
Yeah.
Some most
Kind of that
obnoxious.
campy.
Oh, some most obnoxious stuff in the world.
And the
I thought you said you knew these guys. Oh
yeah.
my god.
And the Punisher that they did with
Thomas Jane?
yeah, was I thought so. The director's cut of that
Uh-huh.
phenomenal. The version they showed in the theaters cut out so much of the kind of some of the story that it's like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Why is he doing that? And then the director's cut was like, oh, well, now that's a story.
You know, your favorite guy in comics that I'm gathering here is the Punisher.
Big time.
Do you know what Marvel just did to him?
Oh, please don't do this to me.
Marvel and DC, I don't know if
What'd they do?
Well, we're getting the cart ahead of the horse here. Like, I left DC because they were
Yeah.
woke, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Marvel destroyed the Punisher like in the last 3 months. That he's gone now. Like, he died, I think, and went to hell or whatever, and or he's locked up or something. I don't read their trash, but friends of mine have told me and shown me some screenshots. His wife came back from the dead, then divorced him, then took all his money and safe out. They just destroyed him, and they destroyed him because outside of the comics in the real world, conservative people like him. And soldiers wear his logo and police officers wear his logo. And the people, the woke, blue-haired, liberal pieces of garbage at Marvel and DC hate that. They hate people who like the Punisher. Imagine having a product, you're McDonald's, and you hate people liking and buying the Big Mac. Marvel hates the Punisher, so they hired this left-wing weakling, Jason Aaron, to write a crappy crybaby liberal Punisher story to get rid of him as a character, and they just finished him off like 2-3 months ago. I don't know if he died or went to hell or went to prison, something horrible, and he's done. He's gone. You know.
Well, so and where I was going. That's a great. Let's transition because that's exactly where I want to go.
Regular transition or 2023 transition?
Well,
Okay.
there. I don't think comic books get enough credit. There are definitely, kids learn lessons from comics.
You think?
Oh, big time. Like real lessons, not just like
Yes.
hey, don't litter, but like, hey, this is how to be a good person.
Right.
This is culture. This is this is what being a good person means, or this is what being an adult or being a man. This is what it means. And I got to tell you, I wasn't huge. I some Batman, some Punisher, some Superman, some I touched most of them slightly. I was really into the Punisher, but I touched most of the comic books slightly, and I can't think of a bad message. You know what I mean? It was all like
It's only bad messages now from the mainstream.
So tell us about your experience. That's where I wanted to go, because that's why you're here. Because of what has transpired in the comic book world and how you pushed back, which I very much respect.
Of course.
So talk about that. So you were working for DC.
After I tell,
I'd imagine that must have been a dream come true.
of course.
Like, oh my gosh, I'm working for DC.
Let me tell you, and everyone listening to this, you're going to want to go to my website, bigmancomics.com, after you hear what I have to say. My favorite artist, Jim Lee, the San Diego guy. He's drawn X-Men, drawn this, that, drawn that. Anyway, he makes his own company. Then he's independent Image, but then he sells his San Diego studio, Wildstorm. It's right over where the seals are, the children's pool on Prospect in La Jolla.
Yeah.
The La Jolla Bank building.
Those seals. I thought you meant Coronado.
No. The La Jolla Bank building on Prospect and Jenner. That's where it was for 20 years. Everything's in Hollywood now, like Burbank or whatever. But he sold out and went back to DC, and he's become a vice president or whatever. Sorry. But they went woke, when everything started going woke in like 2013, 2014, whatever. But it was my childhood dream, not just to work in comics, but to work for Jim Lee. He personally hired me.
Wow.
He did a talent search on his Blogger site. Remember Blogger people used to have those?
Sure.
He put up a drawing of Superman in black and white, said, we need a new staff colorist in San Diego. I was out in Colorado at the time. We had moved there to go to college, my wife and I. And we were planning on making a home in Colorado and just staying there. We've been there for 8 years, but she's from here. And her whole family's here. So it was a blessing to be able to come back here, and my favorite artist hired me.
Wow.
So it's not like going to the NFL.
Yeah.
It's like going to your favorite team in the NFL, and your favorite player is the one that hires you.
You didn't just get into the NFL. You played for,
John Elway. I played defensive end for John Elway. That would be my dream.
All right.
And it's fine at first when I'm there. But then we all know, like, second term of Obama, like 2012, 13, like, that's weird. You hear something woke, you're like, I don't know. And then 6 months goes by, and it's like, no, that's really weird. And it's like the frog in a pot. Wokeness just was taking over our culture. And I remember being at DC, and they just kept, okay, now this character's gay, and now this character, he's not white anymore. He's replaced by a black guy. Now, and it all becomes identity politics, which is so uncreative and tiresome. And again, not a white guy, by the way. I'm not. I'm a Mexican Libyan, so please save the white supremacist stuff. And eventually enough time goes by, and they launch a new Superman book by this hack writer. He's a total social justice warrior, Tom Taylor, completely untalented. And the premise of the story is Superman has a bisexual son, and he also doesn't believe in truth, justice in the American way. It's truth, justice in a better world, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm visiting my dad at the time and working on the books because we work remote as artists, right? And I'm Christian, but my dad is Muslim, so he's very conservative too. And I'm talking to my dad about this stuff. I'm like, I don't want to work on this, Dad. This is filth. All of these woke messages like, oh, well, the white man hates black people and straight people hate gay people and all this hatred and division they just want to push with the books. I don't want to do this, Dad. This is terrible. What do I do? So you can't just drop it in the middle. And this is a Muslim guy telling me this. He's all, you signed a contract, just tell me you're going to finish it and you're moving on. So that's what I did. I was very peaceful about it. I resigned from the company. I mean,
what was there like, hey, wow.
No, I just said, I've got other things I'm going to do. I didn't tell them. And they were like, oh my God, we love you. It's been a great 15 years or whatever. You're such a great part of the team and good luck on whatever you're doing.
15 years.
I worked 3 years in-house and like 11 or 12 as a freelancer. So yeah.
And did you have any other complaints? You know what I mean?
I was an all-star. They couldn't give me enough work.
But did you you were enjoying it? You loved life.
No, it was culture there. That was it. They were taken over by the Hollywood studios because the movies we were talking about. The movies ruined comic books. Because comic books got on the Hollywood people's radar, and we know Hollywood people are godless, demonic people, for the most part. And the ones that won't speak up, well, then they're cowards. So I don't have use for either. If you're a coward, I don't have any use for you as a person. Get out of the way. So Hollywood got a hold of comics and wokeified it and turned it completely perverted and disgusting, anti-family, anti-heterosexual, anti-American, anti-God, anti-anything good and pure.
So not just playing devil's advocate, maybe literally, playing devil's advocate.
Right.
I would assume that they would say, hey, we're trying to be more inclusive. We're not being anti. We're being more. We're just including. Were just adding a bisexual son to Superman. Whatever. We're just adding. What would your response be to that? If they were sitting here and said, well, no, we're not anti. We just want to add. We just want the addition.
Right.
What would you argue?
I have zero problems with writing a story about anything, but here's how you know they're lying. And I've called them out on this to their faces in public. If you're making a real, you want to be inclusive, make a new character. But you can't because you're not a good writer and you're you're just an activist. So you want to take Batman and Superman's fame and then slap your communism on that because that fame is like a rocket ship and it's moving and it's making money. So we said, oh, okay, Batman's not a white billionaire guy. Now he's an illegal immigrant, gay, half black, half Filipino, whatever, for your identity politics. If you want to make that character that's very inclusive, then make a new one. Show us all what a great writer you are. because I know you can't, because that's not what this is about.
But
And
what about the anti part though? Where there's like is there an example you can give? I'm putting you on the spot, but is there like an example? Mostly because I'm curious, not because I don't believe you. I've seen it myself. I
right,
know
right,
what you're
right.
talking about. Like, what are some examples of outright anti-American, anti-family?
Oh my gosh. Where they're just they have Batman saying stuff like there's Black Lives Matter kind of riots in the book, and Batman saying stuff like, the hardware store can afford to or the TV store can afford to lose some TVs. These people don't have enough, and he's literally like repeating like Marxist Black Lives Matter talking points. You have Captain America and the Red Skull talking basically about how patriotic people are like the problem. Like you see it everywhere. They write just a conservative. They write them as the villains in all this stuff.
Patriotic people are the problem.
Basically,
Wow.
yes. They'll be saying like, oh yeah, because if you're to the right of Mao, then you're a Nazi, obviously. And it's completely ideologically driven by a bunch of anti-family, anti-American people. That's who works there. These are disgusting, unprincipled people.
So I think that they're, I remember like back in the 70s, environmentalism started kind of kicking off,
Right.
don't litter and, and I think comic books adopted some of that
Right.
and got a little environmental, kind of adopted the message of the day. They said, hey, this is, let's kind of, which is kind of their version of woke. Certainly not to the extreme is where we're at right now. And that's
Right.
my question. What's the difference between what they were doing there and what they're doing now?
The premise is false. Woke is not an idea of the day. Woke is an authoritarian ideology. Woke breaks the principles of art. Art, believe it or not, is not subjective. Anyone that tells you that art is subjective doesn't know what they're talking about. Art is science. Art, because all art is patterns. They're just patterns. Everything is an equation. When you write a poem, when you write a joke, when you write a story, when you draw a picture, it's literally a pattern, and the cognition of the human brain recognizes the pattern. When you recognize the pattern, you release dopamine. That's why you like art. That's why you like a musical chord, because your brain is hardwired to see nature's patterns. All an artist is, why I said at the beginning why we're not creators, is we're just discoverers of patterns, and then we discover how to mimic them. So the better I get at mimicking a pattern of light and shadow, I can draw. So, when the light hits this microphone, it does that. So then I draw it that way. I didn't create anything. I mimicked a pattern. Your brain saw the pattern and liked it. Here's where woke comes in. Okay, they say Mark Waid. He's a clown. He's another social justice warrior writer at DC Comics. He's a good writer, but not anymore because he just puts woke in, and woke breaks the verisimilitude of a story. So verisimilitude is the story agrees with itself. So if we're telling like a Game of Thrones story, you can believe in dragons, right? Because that's where we are. We're knights and dragons and elves and all that magic and all that stuff. But if we're doing like like ER, the old TV show about hospitals and doctors,
Right.
what if a dragon showed up in that show?
Right.
You'd be like, what's going on?
Right.
Right. And so that's verisimilitude. The story has a pattern, a scientific pattern where it agrees with itself. So when you say, the woman lifts the man and runs out of the burning building. The 5'3", 110-pound woman carries the full-grown man out of the building. So that way I can be like inclusive of feminism. You break the science of the story.
Interesting.
Now the story no longer makes sense. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you say, all these criminals are white guys because they're Christian and they're patriotic, that doesn't ring true in the pattern recognition of your brain. So when you hear it, you go, oh, this is just activism.
Wow.
They're just racist against white people. And it doesn't go, because when you hear something that is true or see something or whatever in art, that is true and you feel good. My daughter is a comedian. She's a professional stand-up, a paid professional here in town. I've written a lot of comedy, and she and I distilled how to write a joke. Logic is A plus B is C, correct? Mm-hmm. All a joke is A plus B is D. It's still true, but it's the unexpected truth. So there's an actual science to writing a joke. Art, unfortunately, for all the artsy-fartsy, turtleneck types, it's science. It isn't this magical thing that they want to say it is.
What a thoughtful explanation. How did you come to, like, where did you pick this up? I guess, obviously, where did you learn this? Where did you discover this? Or how did you put the two and two together that you're explaining?
I don't know. I just know this. I couldn't tell you. This is just how I am. I think my best friend, we've known each other since we were 9. since we were 9 years old. I gave him, the teacher said, we have a new student and he needs to know where bus 15 is. And that was the bus I rode. So I raised my hand and I showed him which bus to get on. And then I followed him home and wouldn't quit talking to him. And we've been friends ever since. I'm 45. We're both 45. He's a day older than me. So we were 9 years old then. And he always says to me, still to this day, he's like, dude, you think too much. Because this is how my brain works. Like even though I'm an artist, I'm ultra analytical. You know what I mean? Like to a robotic point almost. Like I can really break something down. My pattern recognition, well, this is as far as I can see it about myself. My pattern recognition as a human being is extraordinary. Like I can see the 40,000 foot view with zero effort. I see the big picture easily. And it's just, I think that's a gift from God. I didn't do anything to earn that. I'm just that way.
It's funny you say that about art too. I was always, fairly into music, and someone I know who has a PhD in music composition years ago said, I said, wow, this person's really, really talented. Like, even if you're not into this genre, they're really, really talented. And this person said, it's just physics.
It is.
They're just physics.
Just
They're
physics.
That person that you worship is just taking tones that have to sound good together, and they're eliminating tones that don't sound good together.
Right.
And he ruined music for me.
But that's
You know
all,
what I mean?
that's
He
all it
ruined
is.
music for me.
I'm so
Because now, like every time, I'm like, God, I really enjoy this.
Yeah, but why should it
I
ruin
have
it?
to.
Why should
No,
it?
it just
You
kinda-
don't need the magic for art because the magic is there in art. You know where it is? It isn't in the scientific construction of the art. It's in the emotional experience that you get to have when I give you that scientific construction. See, I'm all over here in the lab making the drawing, making the story. Like even when I write a story, there's a science to that. There actually is. There's a science to the way tension builds, the way payoff works. Because I think most people, ideas are easy. Everyone has a good idea for a book or a movie. That's not how you write. It's the execution of the story. And that's where all the science comes in. It's like, if this, then this, but this and that. And there's a logic to it that's wired into us. These patterns exist in nature before you were born, and they will be after you are gone. And art just has a truth to itself. Art is it is the seeking of truth and beauty. That's what art is. And it should only be used to inspire and lift people up. And that's why I had to quit working at DC Comics. I walked away from a childhood dream. Do you know a few people make a good living making comics? Do you know how hard it was to get that job?
I would imagine.
And they asked me to do evil. I said no, because that's the kind of principle I stand on because of my grandfather and my father, the way they raised me. It's like, I won't do that. You want me to make woke stories and tell black people they can't succeed in a white world? Why in the world would I tell someone that? Then they might quit trying and I would help ruin their life. Tell gay people, you're weird because you're gay and everyone hates you because of it. Why would I tell someone that in a story? Why? And that's what they want to do. They want to do all that divisive, us versus them, us versus them. I'm not doing that.
See, and I think that the explanation you gave, I don't think people, I could definitely see a group of people just saying, oh, who cares? They're comic books, whatever. What kind of book?
No.
But no, there is clearly evidence by the last 10 minutes conversation.
Right.
There's a lot of thought that goes into it. I know from personal experience, I've seen others. This is how we learn morality. This is how we learn culture. If you're into it.
Well, we all are, whether we know it or not. It's like alcohol. You're going to be drunk whether you like it or not. If you drink it, it's not up to you. That's how persuasion works. You can see persuasion, be told it's persuasion propaganda, and it still works because the amygdala, the subconscious, whatever, it picks up the pattern, and it doesn't know reality from fiction. So the most powerful way to persuade people is story. It's been used for all of time. It was good enough for Jesus to tell parables. Jesus spoke in parables. Parables are not true stories. They're just stories. They're fiction stories, but they make a point. And politics is downstream from culture. If you're tired of watching people in California, what is that thing where if they don't steal more than $900 and it's a misdemeanor, and you see all this stuff on the internet, you'll see them break into a jewelry store and they'll steal just enough so they don't get in any trouble. And you see the thoughtlessness and you see the insanity and all that. And I know social media is a bit like looking through a keyhole. It's not real life. But the stuff seems crazier than ever, but maybe that's a psyop too. But the point is, you're going to get people to think and believe and then act they're going to act based on what they believe. I remember being a little kid at the Assembly of God Church and the teacher was trying to explain to us what faith was when I was 6 years old. And it was a brilliant explanation. She said, you all came in here and you sat on your chairs. You didn't touch the chair and poke it to see if it would fall because you had faith that it was sturdy. So you acted on your faith. Whatever you act on is what you actually believe. What you don't act on, you don't believe it. You could say all day, oh, I believe in this, but if you don't do anything, you don't actually believe it. The Bible says faith without works is dead. If you don't act on your faith, then you don't really believe it, right? So when you make movies that are awful, when you make fathers into Homer Simpson and Al Bundy for 30, 40 years now, what are you doing to people's faith about fathers and patriarchy and all that? What are you doing? You're messing with it, and you're getting them to believe awful things about the family, about their country, about their traditions, and you're dismantling it. You're destroying it. So people will, like sitting on that chair and it won't crumble, they will act on the faith that fathers and families are terrible. They will act on that because they will believe it because they heard enough stories over and over and over. So I am writing amazing, inspiring, uplifting stuff, and I've teamed up with my friend Dean Cain, Superman himself. He's conservative, he's a patriot, he's a gun advocate. You would love this guy, and he's my kind of guy. He saw me when I quit DC Comics. It was a scandal. It was international news for about 72 hours. I was around the globe, European news. I got a call from a guy in London. He looked me up. He wanted to congratulate me. It was Fox News. It was every news had me all over there because I trashed them about Superman.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Before we talk about that, I want to. You're still there. You're still working. You told me about the conversation you had with your dad and the concerns that were happening, some of the storylines that were changing. Was there any? Did anybody else go, hey, well, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Cowards. I get messages from other comic book artists and writers to this day, private messages. Dude, what you did is so important, but I got a family and I got a mortgage. Like I didn't have a family and a mortgage.
So there was nobody else. There was no, sitting in the whatever. I don't know if you have a break room or what you got. There was nobody else.
You work at home when you did this.
Wait a minute. This doesn't seem. There was no email. There was no memo. There was no Jerry Maguire memo.
Oh no.
Hey, look. No. I don't think this is going. Or the opposite. Did anybody come to you guys and say, hey, look, we need to become more, whatever language they use, but we need to change. We need to become more inclusive. We need to have storyline. Was there anything on either side?
No, they just go. I heard. David Foster Wallace, the great author, he committed suicide, I believe, back in the 90s. But I heard him giving a speech once, and he was talking about some fish. And there was an old man fish and two young fish, and they were swimming by each other. And the old man goes, water's beautiful today, isn't it? And the young fish look at each other and go, what the hell is water? Because how would a fish know it was in water, right? So in Hollywood, they don't know that they're woke. They don't know that they're insane, communist, whatever, because everyone there is just that way, or they're a coward and they won't speak up. Well, so there is no pushback in those businesses. It's the big bully Marxist cowards. They bully and cancel everyone. So either everyone agrees or it's canceled.
And so that had to have happened. So the guy that hired you,
yeah,
was he still there when you left?
Yeah, he's still there to this day.
Did you go talk to him?
I did. I chewed him out. I had a few talks to him before I left.
Well, are you comfortable with talking about like?
Absolutely. I made a YouTube video. It's reading the text I sent him.
So give us a little. What was his reaction? I mean, he'd been in this for
right. Oh, the
decades.
thing about him that I just lost. Never meet your heroes. Right. Yeah. That I lost so much respect for him is he's not. I
learned that lesson.
He's not like a woke leftist, but he's sure in this for the money. And that's even more disgusting. At least if he was a leftist Marxist, I could just write him off as an idiot. But he knows better than this. He's like, Gabe, I'm a Christian too, and blah, blah, blah. But what then, Jim? But what? Why are we making filth? They made a comic book called Second Coming. This is the hubris of the left-wing writer, where Jesus messed up when he came here 2,000 years ago. Because look at how conservatives act today. They obviously don't understand the real teachings of the Bible. So Jesus is sent back to live like in an apartment in New York with like a Superman kind of character and learn basically to be woke and left. And that's really God's message. I called them on the phone.
That was a comic book?
Was going to be one. They had already drawn like the first issue, and it was called Second Coming. And it think of the blasphemy there. I called Larry Gannam, talent relations vice president. That's who we deal with when we're freelancers. I said, I'm not going to swear, but I told him, what the F is this?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me with this? And he's all, well, have you even read it? Right. And I won't say it, something else, but I said, oh, okay, well, would you write a book like this about Islam? And then he said to me, no, we'd get death threats. So now he's bigoted against Muslims, right? Because he thinks they're all going to get him or whatever. But I just said, this is ridiculous. The Catholic League came out against them, got hundreds of thousands of signatures. They never published the book. and some other small company. But that's the kind of stuff that is anti-Christian.
So did they benefit? Have they benefited financially from going woke?
Oh, no, no, no. They have canceled so many books. They've lowered their page rates, which they haven't raised in 20 something years.
What's the page rate?
If you draw a page of comics, you get like $200, $300, $400, whatever, for the pencils. You get a certain amount of money for the ink. You get a certain amount of money for the color. Those rates have not gone up since the 90s. They've lowered them just recently.
Wow.
They've cut back on the amount of books they publish every month. Their circulation numbers of how many copies of Batman and Superman they sell are terrible. Comic book stores in America, I think there's less than 2,000 comic book stores now. And they're going out of business all the time because they put this woke girl power garbage out there. And who's it for? Boys want action and adventure and the Punisher with a gun and a gorgeous woman. You know what I mean? Guys want to feel like a hero saving the beautiful girl. That's nothing new. And they won't publish it. Everything is about, oh, it's a strong woman saving a man and the weak, the weak, limp-wristed man and everything. Anything good, and it's inverted. It's completely upside down and backwards. Everything you can think of that you like about action and adventure is inverted.
So then there must be some true believers at the top. Because if they're not benefiting financially, then they must be doing this because they're true believers.
Well, maybe. What we found out last year, I got a couple friends that are conservative and do comics like I do. You can get my comics at bigmancomics.com. They're awesome. And what we found, about ESGs?
No.
Okay. You know about BlackRock and Vanguard and those companies?
Yeah.
Giant, they manage trillions of dollars. Sure. Basically, they give an ESG score to companies to get you to buy their stock. And the ESG is woke. The woker the company, the higher their ESG. So the theory is, they're getting the losses on comics made up by the ESG stuff, the ESG funding and all that. So basically being paid by rich elites to make, this is a theory. I don't know that this is true, but it's not my theory. This is all over the internet if you look
but even
at
that, but the true believers in that situation are the rich investors.
Right, because it's divide and conquer. If you push all this culture war stuff, what's it going to do? It's always going to divide.
Do you think that is a conscious? Do you think there are a group of people that sat down and said, "Hey, we're going to change the world. One of the ways we're going to do it is we're going to change the way kids grow up, and we're going to do that by making comic books that."
Yes, I think that's been going on for 100 years. I don't think the Beatles were organic. I don't think those things happen by accident. I don't think any big musician or anything, once they get big, I don't think they're on their own. I don't think that's how any of this works. I don't think the powers that be would allow huge influential messages out there that went against their interests. Do you? Do you think that would go on? Because I don't.
Well, I don't know. I think it's enormously complicated. I definitely have debates with myself over, is culture, reflective of what's going on? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Or is it the other way around? In other words, did comic books become woke because they were following woke, or are people more woke because comic books?
Well, I'll tell you this: a super woke writer at DC is a former CIA employee.
Wow, talk about that.
Yeah. I don't know much about it. Tom King, I don't like his writing, but I worked with him on a story once. But I just know he used to work at CIA and now he works there. I know Anderson Cooper's CIA. Everyone, that's open. You can Google that. Everyone knows that. And I know that the message is controlled.
Anderson Cooper from CNN?
Uh-huh.
I didn't know he's.
Oh, yeah. Look that up. That's not a hidden secret. But I mean, it's controlled. All of this stuff is controlled because they need people to be little sheep that work, pay taxes, and die. That's what they need. So they can be richer and richer and richer. And that's what all this woke and all this identity politics destroying the family, that's what it's all about. To keep people dumb and stupid and drunk and addicted to porn and addicted to whatever time-wasting nonsense, so you don't see what they're doing to you and your family.
So what now? Okay, so you quit.
Yeah, oh yeah.
How did the world know you quit? You know what I mean? For that reason. Like, how did Fox News find you? How did
I went on my buddy Ethan Van Sciver's podcast. He's a conservative. He worked at Marvel and DC, best-selling artist for them in the 2000 up to when he quit, because he celebrated Trump winning, and they basically told him, you got to delete your social media or we're not renewing your contract. That's what he told me. I don't have proof of that, but that's what he told me, basically. There's more to it than that. Some left-wing writers got together and wrote a big letter telling DC Comics none of us are going to write stories for him to draw. Like he's a Nazi, he loves Trump, and blah blah blah. So they conspire, which is illegal. This is alleged. I don't have proof of it, but people talk in my business. So he went out on his own. He got down on his knees and prayed to God, and he was like me. He said he worked there forever. He's going to go independent. So he's done his own thing. He's made millions. He's done great. I thought the same thing. And stories do inform how you believe things, because why do you believe anything? Because you heard it and you saw it. Those are stories, right? So I remember Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade, when he has to step into the bottomless chasm with the invisible bridge, the leap of faith, right? He has to trust God in the leap of faith. I remember picturing that part of the movie when I was going to quit DC Comics and praying, God, don't let me fall here. This is my resume for 20-something years. What am I going to do for a living? I got a mortgage. I got kids, a wife, but I will not make evil art with them. I'm not doing that. So I took that step of faith like Indiana Jones. And that's why stories are important, because I saw that when I was 10 years old, and it stuck with me because it was a great message to be brave in the face of terror, because it's the right thing to do. So I was brave in the face of my own financial terror, maybe because it was the right thing to do. I could have done the cowardly thing and said, okay, and just kept, because they loved me at DC Comics.
And so you announced that on this podcast.
Oh,
that's how the world.
I quit through an email. I wrote to the editor-in-chief and Jim Lee and these other people. Thank you. I'm going somewhere else. And then I went on my buddy Ethan's show. But with cancel culture, you're not allowed on his show. And his YouTube show had been famous for a few years at that point. And I would secretly talk to Ethan and email him and, hey, dude, I support you. I just got to figure out a way out of this company because they're just getting crazier and crazier. And the Superman thing, that was just the final straw.
The Superman thing where they changed it from truth, justice,
that's what
American way,
pissed me off, was the
truth,
low.
justice, and what was
and
it?
a better tomorrow at first, and then a better world. And that always goes to that communist Marxist narcissist thing, where history started this morning, and my fathers they don't know more than me. I made everything. I invented everything. It's like they make themselves a god. So, of course, the previous 80 years of comics of Superman, they didn't know anything. Let me tell you what his slogan really is. That's the arrogance, the hubris these people have. When they don't understand, when you work on Spider-Man and Batman and Superman, you didn't create that. You are a temporary caretaker of that. Just like our country. I didn't make America. It's just my job to keep the fire alive while I'm here and make sure it's alive for the people after I'm gone. That's it. And when you take Batman and Superman, these American icons, and you ruin them like that, you're just a disgusting person. You have no right to do that. Better people than you made this. And they made a business and an industry so we can make money drawing, and you're going to ruin that? I don't want my name on that failure. No way. So I went on Ethan's show, which you're not allowed to go to because you get canceled just for being his friend. And we talked about it in the new Superman comic. And I kind of lost my temper. I said, I'm so tired of this shit. I'm so tired of them doing this. And I told Ethan and the guys on there's a few other guys there, and I said, I'm going to finish my contract, but then I got to get out of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that just exploded. That got on this website, and all of a sudden, Dana Loesch's people are calling me. I decided not to do a show at first because I didn't do media at first. I didn't know what to do, and it was just everywhere.
What was the concern? When you
I just had never done media before, So I was like, well, what do you do? I wasn't interested. What kind of effect will it have on me? I didn't know how any of it worked.
How did that change?
Like a month or two later, Mikkel Barthelemy, she's a guest on Grant Stinchfield on Newsmax, and now he's on Real America's Voice. He did a nightly news program. She talked to me on Instagram and said, you should go on Grant's show. So I went on there, and it was fantastic, and I got a huge response from people.
Wow.
So I've been doing media ever since. I was just on the Babylon Bee like a week ago. My second time, I did like an 1.5 hour podcast that drops like on Tuesday or something. I was with Dean Cain. Dean Cain and I have teamed up on an amazing graphic novel called Dean Cain, All-American Lawman. And it is just the most exciting thing. If you loved 80s and 90s action where good is good and bad is bad, and there are beautiful women and explosions and helicopters and jets, but a great story because I'm a very good writer, then go to bigmancomics.com right now and pre-order it. It'll be out in winter. And but yeah, Dean and I, we became friends because he saw the scandal on Twitter, and he private messaged me. He said, hey man, we should talk. Here's my number. So I didn't know him. I never talked to him. I knew who Superman was. I knew who he was. Yeah. So I called him. I said, what can I do?
He was on the show. He was on the TV show Superman.
He was Superman.
Yes. And who was who was Lois Lane? She was
Terry Hatcher.
Oh my God, did I have a crush on her?
Beautiful.
Holy cow.
Still beautiful.
What was that? Late 80s?
That was mid 90s.
Oh,
That was
really?
93 to 97,
Okay,
94 to 98, 93 to 97, something like that. Yeah.
I can't remember how much I watched of that, but it was huge.
Yeah.
He was huge for a few years. That show was really big.
He's one of the best guys I've ever met. He's
Wow.
completely down to earth, patriotic, dedicated father, Christian, gun advocate, right? Just freedom advocate. Raised really well. You could tell he was raised very well by his adoptive father.
So since all this happened,
Yeah.
have you received any credible threats?
Oh no. Comic book people have Twitter muscles. They talk a lot of trash and insult you and call you a Nazi, homophobe, blah blah blah, white supremacist. I'm a Mexican Libyan, first generation. My dad's from Libya from the 70s. He got here. I'm the world's worst white supremacist. What I was taught by my hardworking men in my family is seeing my grandfather with his titanium in his leg and his swollen arthritic hands. He's from 1918. He was born, Great Depression, fighting in the Pacific Theater in World War II, could barely walk. And he's getting up at 6 to go make the dough to make tortillas at his tortilla factory in the 90s when I would go and stay with him in the summers. And watching a little old man beat to shit like that, work his butt off, and what he provided for all of us. And just, he was such a kind, stoic, godly man. And the impact he had on me. And my uncle, his son, was self-employed. He was an attorney. And my father was self-employed. And seeing these men work so hard and provide so much, it just made me appreciate it so much. Because I've worked really hard. I've had a job since I was 12, nonstop. I've never not had a job since I was 12. I'm 45. And I understand what this country can do for you if you'll play by the rules and you'll add to it, leave it better than you found it. So to me, to have anyone disrespect it, to me, I take that as direct disrespect to my grandfather, to my dad, all that. My dad ran from a socialist dictatorship in Libya. Gaddafi is a socialist. No rights. They kill you for disagreeing with the boss over there. They killed my grandfather. He was assassinated in an accident. They killed my dad's friends because they stood up to Gaddafi when they were college age in the 70s. Well, I don't know my family in Libya. Never met them. Don't know these people at all because my dad was on a kill list of Gaddafi's.
Oh my gosh.
So that's socialism. And I told you before the show, my favorite author, the greatest American author, I'll never back down from this, Cormac McCarthy. He wrote The Road, he wrote No Country for Old Men, and I told you this, but I want the audience to hear. In the book Blood Meridian, there's a super evil character, and he's sitting around talking to the other bandits. It's a cowboy book, it's a Western, and long story short, he's so evil, he's telling them anything that exists without my knowledge exists without my consent. And that's how the left is. You are not allowed to have an opinion they don't want you to have, let alone act on said opinion. And that is, I'm very Christian, and to me, that's Satanism. When you say that you are God and nothing can exist unless you approve, you're making yourself God. That's what Satan's sin was. He would not submit to God. He was God, is what he wanted. And I see the left clearly. I see them for what they are. They are Satanists. They don't know they are, because the devil is the master of lies. He's never going to let you know you're a Satanist. You're going to think you're living your best life. You're living your truth. That's what you think you're doing. All you've done is made yourself God, which is the ultimate evil. There's nothing more evil. Because, it's Sunday, so I'm giving a little sermon here, but Jesus does say, love your fellow man as yourself, and you fulfilled all of my law. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the opposite of that? Love yourself above everyone else, and you've broken every law. It's the ultimate evil to be a leftist narcissist.
It feels like it's almost like humans we're all there's something in us that makes us way too comfortable with our own brand of tyranny.
Yeah.
And I don't think the left or Democrats or whatever have cornered that market. I think that they are the most aggressive, especially right now, when it comes to that. But I'm starting to believe that we being human beings, may not be evolved socially enough to for the American experiment. It's we're supposed to be the government. We're supposed to be the country of the self-governed.
Right.
And I feel like left, right, up, down, everyone is way too comfortable with their own brand of tyranny.
Right.
I got to say, and you and I were talking about this too. When I lived in San Francisco, I didn't know left from right, Democrat from Republican. I was a pretty conservative kid, but I didn't know San Francisco was like this left wing, mecca,
Right.
where I didn't know that until I moved there. And I remember that was my first big exposure to that. And I remember coming to the conclusion that, hey, we're all open minded as long as you think exactly like me. And I'm like, well,
Right.
that's not being open minded.
Right.
That's quite the opposite. But there was this delusion, and then getting involved with the Republican Party in San Diego after I moved here, I realized that they have their own comfort level with their own brand of tyranny. I do believe that right now, uh, this woke culture and what's going on is so uh, destructive that it's almost not worth mentioning anyone else's tyranny right now.
Right.
But it does seem like we got to fix the problem.
Well, I think the problem stems from not loving others as yourself. And I think where a big generator of that is this selfish individualism that is propagated by big cities. It's no coincidence that big cities are always blue. The way human beings, in my estimation, were built to live amongst each other, to love each other fully, is to be responsible to each other and for each other. How can I be responsible in a city of 2, 3 million? I don't know everybody. But if I live in a village of 100, everyone knows me and they know what my job is for that village. You see?
Yeah.
Hey, why isn't Mike doing this? He was supposed to do that for all of us. So now there's accountability and there's shame and all that. Hey, you better tell your son he was supposed to do blah, blah, blah with the pigs yesterday. Like Little House on the Prairie, there's 100 of them and that's it. And I think living with hundreds of thousands and millions of people is wrong, just like when we put farm animals in those big factory farms and they get bird flu and they
Right.
get cow,
Yeah.
get mad cow,
And
whatever.
they get aggressive
I
towards
think
each other.
spiritually that happens to human beings when they live on top of each other in Manhattan and Hollywood and all that. There's too many, and you're anonymous, but you're in a sea of people, but you're anonymous. So you do whatever you want, all your evil, selfish, whatever, because you're not accountable to anyone. And again, love thy neighbor as thyself, and you've fulfilled all of my law.
Well, I absolutely think you're onto something. And then you add the internet to this.
Right.
And there's no villages. We're all the
No.
world. Like everybody can talk to everybody now. It used to be that you had to have some kind of pedigree, some kind of credibility in order to get a voice. In order to,
Right.
you know what I mean? In order for people to listen to you. Now anybody, we all have the same access to everybody else in the world,
Right.
and it feels like that. It's like this wokeness is the first big flu. That's the first big growing pain to this world culture. We don't, there's no, there's no, who Patton Oswalt is?
Yeah.
He actually wrote.
Ugh.
Well, I hear you,
Hateful.
but
It's hateful.
he wrote an op-ed, a little, I don't know if it's an op-ed, but a little article where he talked about how one of the things that's missing from today's society is these common experiences. Whereas, in the 70s and the 80s, we'd all watch the same show on Friday night and then talk about
Right.
it. Van Halen's coming to town. We all go to that same show.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I was just talking to my daughter about this morning because she's 26, and I was telling her like the world that I lived in was so different for exactly the reason you're saying. Everyone, I remember being in first grade and the teacher was asking one of my classmates on the playground, "Did you see the Thriller video last night or
Yeah,
whatever?"
right.
Because everyone watched the same thing. So yes, we had a common culture, and now it's like, oh, did you watch like Demon Slayer, blah blah blah, Japanese cartoon? It's like I never heard of it. Oh, it has 400 million fans.
Yeah.
It's like the most popular thing in the world. You never heard of it.
Like, I don't even know how to watch TV anymore.
Right.
I certainly don't know. I barely know how to watch a movie anymore.
Right.
Like, if you, it used to be, if you wanted to go watch, if I wanted to go watch Die Hard,
Right.
how do I watch Die Hard right now?
If I had to guess, go to Amazon Prime and rent it for $3, and maybe it'll be there. And if it's not there, you check.
I don't even know what that means, but
No.
I feel like my dad. Like
Right.
my dad didn't understand technology.
But
But the thing is, I think that where I was going. This feels like an enormous growing pain
Right.
to this global culture that we now have, where
Right.
everyone can talk to everyone. And I think that like with crime, like you have you have some, name the deviant, whatever. You have some kind of deviant behavior. Maybe there was one of those guys in one town somewhere in the U.S.
Right.
But now the one guy who's that deviant, who has that deviant opinion, he can now talk to every deviant
Right.
across the country. So now there's 1,000 of them talking to each other. And now they're oppressed. Now they're a subculture. Now they're a thing.
Right.
And I don't. We got to figure out how to deal.
Well,
with
here's the thing, and again, that's why you do what I'm doing. You walk away from Warner Brothers, even though it was your childhood dream, and you make your own entertainment that's better. I'm making
So
my
talk
own.
about that. Talk about what when you sit down to create. First off, tell people what you're creating, and then when you create it, what's your goal? Like, what is the thought process to make it a better message or a better product?
My first goal is to entertain. Okay, and the only way I'm going to entertain you is by having the skills I have. So that takes years. So I have them. I'm a very good writer, very good illustrator, and all that. But the first goal is to entertain. The second goal is to uplift and all that. I want it to be entertaining, but I don't want it to be negative. I don't want it to be ugly. I don't want it to be anti-American, anti-family, all those things. Because when you come away from it, you're going to believe it on a subconscious level, what I just told you. Because as long as the patterns are there, if the glove does not fit, you must acquit. Well, the reason that worked is because of what I'm telling you. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. If the glove does not fit, you must quit is not true. Why is that true? But it feels true because it rhymes, and a rhyme is a pattern. A story is a pattern. A drawing is a pattern. A poem is a pattern. A song is a pattern. A joke is a pattern. If you package something in a pattern, it becomes true, whether it's true or not. Okay? So when I write stories about uplifting things, if my patterns are good, my storytelling ability, my drawing ability, all that, then people will believe them on a subconscious level. And that's important to me because I want people to be like the Indiana Jones thing, like I was, where they see Dean Cain, all-American lawman, fighting against the forces of evil, having a crisis of conscience, and thinking he can't save the day, and then digging deep, and believing in honesty and, having character and just saving the day. And then when you have a problem in your life, you can reference it and say, you know what? It's okay to be afraid. In Game of Thrones, one of the characters, they're scared of something coming. And the little boy says to his dad, aren't you afraid, Dad? And the dad says, you can only be brave when you're scared. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter how you feel. It matters what you do. You can feel any old way you want and do the right thing. And to me, that's the most important thing. So I think all this gnashing of teeth and wailing and crying and bitching about woke is pointless if we don't do something about it. And if you can't...
I think that's an excellent message across the board, whether we're talking about woke or politics or woke in politics, whatever, sitting there, gnashing of teeth and wringing of hands and whatever. Useless. Do
something. It's okay to feel that way, but now do something.
So when you come up with a story, do you come up with a message and then figure out how to tell a story about it, or do you come up with a story and then inject the message? You know what I mean? Like,
I think for someone like me, it's more like a general genre. And then I'll figure out the message. I always know what my message is always the same: to do the right thing and be brave and be loving. That's going to be a message of every story I write. So I already know the message. I might say it this way or that way, or emphasize bravery more, emphasize love more, whatever, in different stories. But my message is always going to be the same: love people and do the right thing. And love is being brave. Love is not all candies and flowers. Sometimes you have to be stern and harsh with people, and that is love to them. Do you know what I mean? Love isn't the left's version of love where you let your kid eat ice cream for breakfast because they're crying and you don't want to hurt their feelings. That's hatred when you do that. That isn't love. So to me, it's about genre. So I was drawing another book called Truth, Justice, American Way. That was the first fundraising book I did, and that was a huge success. People loved it. I did that one in response to DC Comics getting rid of that slogan. We have a book called that, and it was an awesome book. And I'm in the middle of drawing that. I was finishing up drawing it, and Dean had been helping me promote it and stuff. Dean Cain, the actor. And I called, and I was like, what should I do next? And I feel like God just spoke to me and said, well, you should do something with Dean. He's promoting. Why not you do one with him? So I call him on the phone, and we start talking. Like, why don't we do a graphic novel? It could star you. Like, this is like a movie vehicle for you. You know what I mean? Like, think of the 90s action movie you never made that you always wanted to do, and blah, blah. And he says to me, have you ever seen Romancing the Stone, Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner? I'm like, I love that.
I love that movie.
He's like, I love them. I'm like, oh my gosh, we'll do one in that vein. So Dean Cain, All-American Lawman, is about, He's we don't know what he is. It's that awesome shadowy thing where was he special forces? Was he a
Right.
SEAL? Was he
Right.
CIA? He's just this guy that gets in
Right.
these dangerous situations, but it's always with a wink and a smile and a
Right.
beautiful lady. And it's Dean Cain, All American Lawman, Volume 1. And, the world's most dangerous cartel is threatening the lives of millions and only he can stop it and stuff like that. And it's awesome. It's an
That
awesome
sounds
book.
awesome.
Yeah.
So how do people find you?
They go to bigmancomics.com. That's my company.
Which, by the way, big man, that's not an ironic name. You're
I'm-
a big man.
I'm 6'4", 280 pounds. Yeah,
That's probably another reason you don't get threatened.
I don't. People have Twitter muscles.
I mean, I don't think I'm pretty sure you could take me. Probably Matt could probably put the hurting on you over here. But
I
anybody
doubt
else?
that. Sorry, Matt. Sorry, Matt. Just being honest. I'm an honest guy.
Okay, so you go to Big Man Comics and
You
then
pre-order it.
okay.
So we have it's one book. It's at least 80 pages, but it's longer. I say it's 80 pages, but I wrote the full script. It's actually ended up being longer. And it's a gorgeous book, illustrated by my friend Akion. He's like a 30-something year veteran of illustration, animation. He's so good. I'm doing the coloring. I'm illustrating a different book of my own. We'll talk about that some other time. But I wrote this one, and I'm coloring this one, and my buddy Akion is drawing it, and it's just outstanding. And Dean helped me with the main character and some of the plot stuff, and it's gorgeous. So the way we do it now that we're independent from Disney and Warner Brothers is we have crowdfunding. So you go on the website, you order the book now, and then we'll finish it in a couple months, and then we ship it right to your house.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So that's what we did with Truth, Justice, American Way, and we're looking to raise tons of money on this one and to make a dent against the bad guys that are spreading evil woke messages.
So that's fascinating. Okay, so
Can I say one last thing about
Yes.
that? So what I said earlier about, like, instead of just complaining about woke and getting mad about what they're trying to teach your kids in school, like, think about what they're trying to do here in California and the gun rights and the election, this and that, all the things that are pissing you off. If you want to make a change to this stuff, you have to change the culture so people vote differently. And there's two ways to change the culture. You can do what I'm doing and you can make the culture. And if you don't have the skills to sing or dance or act or make a comic or make a movie, make TV, if you can't do it, then support people like me and buy it. Buy as many copies, tell all your friends. But it will not change if we don't change the culture. Politics downstream from culture. So either do what I'm doing, make it, or buy it from me. That's how we do it.
yeah, your dime or your time, right? That's what we need.
go.
Politics, culture, whatever. We need
Right.
your dime or your time.
Right.
Okay, so I'm just like, how many people? I don't know if you're even if you're if you're allowed to tell me. I don't know, but like, how many people do you expect to buy this? Like, what does that look like? What's your
I mean, tens of thousands.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So I did a book with Eric July. He's a cultural critic on YouTube. He has like over 500,000 subs on his YouTube channel. And he did Isom, which is a classic 80s, 90s action adventure hero. And he raised $3.7 million on it. I'm the color artist on that book. And then we did Isom 2, and we're closing it out today. I'm going to go be on his YouTube show later today. And I think that one is at like $2.3 million or whatever. We have some more books coming. And there's some canceled authors from Marvel and DC because they're conservative. They voted for Bush, so they haven't worked for Marvel and DC like in 20 years. And they're writing a book for him now. One of the guys, Chuck Dixon, good friend of mine, he wrote The Punisher forever. Punishers probably that you loved, he wrote those. And my other buddy, Mike Barron, he's one of my best friends. He wrote The Punishers you read, I'm certain, because they were the late 80s Punishers. And he's a conservative who hasn't worked in 20 years there.
It hasn't worked in 20 years.
He's worked on other combo companies, but Marvel and DC won't hire him because he voted for Bush in 2000.
That's
They just won't
insane.
hire him.
So,
Like-
is there kind of this movement of the non woke?
Oh yeah. Ethan Van Sciver, remember the one I told you about?
Yeah.
He started a movement, and everything is a Watergate and this gate. It was a scandal on Twitter. Comic book Twitter is the cringiest thing ever, called Comicsgate. So just to mock his detractors, he adopted that name and trademarked it. So if you're a fan of like non-woke comics, and they're not even right-wing comics, they're just adventures. Like, is Indiana Jones left-wing or right-wing? The original movies do not make it clear. He's just a cool guy that has adventures.
Definitely anti-Nazi.
Right. But he's not.
Nazis are left.
But he's not like, and the patriarchy sucks.
Yeah,
He doesn't say that in the original ones. He's not left wing, but he's not right wing. He's just a guy. And if anything, like, he ends up believing in God. At first he's skeptical, but then he's like doing all the stuff in the Last Crusade. But anyway, he called it Comicsgate, right? That's what Ethan calls it. So that's kind of like the shorthand for people who are against the woke weirdness. But it is that what the hell is water thing. I think a lot of people don't see it, and that fascinates me because to me it's the most obvious thing in the world.
I had that thought. Everybody born after 9/11, let's say, everyone born after 9/11 thinks this is just how it is.
I had that conversation with my daughter the other day.
Like, and I don't just mean, I mean across the board.
Everything.
They just think, and
and they just keep the anxiety up.
and
If keep people dancing.
Yeah, if you look back the last 20 years, this isn't. It's bizarre.
It's torture. It's torture for
20 years of war.
A war about what? No one has told me yet what that was about.
The economics, the up and down of the economics, like all the weirdness. Every time. I mean, 2000 was really the first time an election. First time, I believe. I'm gonna. I don't know. Maybe someone out there will correct me. But the first time I can think of, we used to be, as a country, so respected in that every 4 years we voted for a new leader and there was a peaceful exchange of power.
Right.
Or change of power. And 2000 was the first kind of crack in that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then ever since, both sides, have, they stole the election. I mean, the last 20 years have been bizarre. And if you were born in the last 23 years, 22 years, I can't believe that this is how you think life is.
Right.
And how are we going to change that?
With the culture.
Well,
how else do you change it? People believe what they hear and then what they experience.
I definitely think a lot of people have been waiting for it to go away, and it's not going away.
Right. Nothing will happen unless you do something.
Right.
This is physics. A body at rest tends to stay at rest unless it's acted on by an outside force. So if you just see the problem and go, well, I hope that goes away on its own, why would it? Why would the woke authoritarian people ever stop if no one stood up to them? That's what they want, is to take over.
So do you have a positive opinion of the future? Do you think things are getting better? Are we on are we on a better trajectory, or do you think there's a lot of, like, where are we? In the future, if you had to look in your crystal ball, what are we going to look like in 10 years?
I have a positive opinion of life in general because all of it's a miracle. Even though there's bad right now, and there's been pretty awful situation for 20 years compared to the 80s and 90s when I was young, I'm still glass half full about all of it, even the woke stuff going on right now, because I know that it's the good things we have are an absolute miracle from God. You know what I mean? Something as simple as air conditioning. You know what I mean? Like, people don't gather what life was for our ancestors, how miserable it was, how they could just die catching a cold.
Yeah.
Like, we live in absolute abundance.
Giving birth.
Right.
And die.
Right.
Birth. Just a lot of women, it was almost normal. Not
it wasn't common, but it wasn't rare.
Right.
It wouldn't shock people.
Yeah,
that's it.
It happened to a percentage of people. Where now it's like, if a woman, dies during childbirth, it's like, oh my God, how did that never happen?
Right. So even though there are many bad things, this is what we're called for. This is the battle of our time. It's okay. To me, it's better than going to the islands like my grandpa in Okinawa and Iwo Jima and watching his friends' guts fall all over their knees from a machine gun nest. So I would rather fight blue-haired woke people with art than be shot at on islands in the South Pacific like my grandpa. So I have a lot of perspective on it that way. Like, yes, there are bad things, but you know what? This is just how it is now. 50 years from now, 100 years from now, it'll be a different thing. And this is how it'll always be. There'll always be the struggle against good and evil.
Okay, let's talk about some fun stuff before we wrap it up here. First off, what else is there? Anything else you wanna talk about as far as your experience with DC, leaving, starting, culture? Anything else you want to make sure that we touch on before we?
Well, I am grateful that I work there, and I don't hate those people. I hate what they do, but I don't hate them on a personal level. And I'm grateful to God that I got to live a dream of mine. You know what I mean? I'm sitting there, putting my name on Batman, putting my name on Superman. One of the most wonderful moments I ever had was at Comic-Con, like in 2009 or 10, 11, I don't know. And Jerry Robinson, who created the Joker, was there. And he was a very old man at that point. He was in a wheelchair. And I'm a big guy. I'm very tall, very strong. And they asked me to push his wheelchair across the convention center downtown to go meet with someone else, because I was at the booth for DC. And they said, hey, can you take Jerry and his son over here? So I was pushing him through the crowds and all this. And I stopped at one point and I bent down to his wheelchair. I said, thank you for creating these characters.
Wow.
I said, because I got to walk into a business that already existed and made a lot of money.
Yeah.
I love drawing, and you made something and didn't get paid well for it. And I just got to make a living. Thank you.
Wow.
So the fact that I got to tell someone that was that old, that was there at the beginning, something like that. That meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
So there are many, many great experiences with Warner Brothers, this and that. But I will not. I have a limit, and I will not sign off on evil. They want to do that. I'm not doing that. So I did love working there.
Yeah.
It was a great time. I got to meet and work with so many of my artistic heroes. But we part ways. If you want to be evil, if you want to be woke, we part ways.
I wish I could remember our art teacher in high school
Uh-huh.
taught an illustrator for The Punisher,
Oh,
and I wish I could remember his name.
there's so many.
I know you and I already talked about
Mike
it.
Zeck, Carl Potts.
I should have come prepared. But every comic book guy in our high school
Yeah.
wanted to go take his class, right?
Right.
Because he was such a nice man. He was such a good guy. But anyway, of course, that was right around the time I was in. Okay, so let's talk about some fun stuff.
Okay.
Who's your all-time favorite comic book guy or character?
My favorite character. I named my son Peter after Spider-Man,
Nice.
and I think I like.
What do you like about Spider-Man?
When my son was born, I was reading Spider-Man, and it was really, I love the illustration by John Romita Jr. His father, John Romita Sr., was like one of the classic Spider-Man artists from the 60s. Just passed away like a month ago, rest in peace. He was in his 80s or 90s, very old. But I love John Romita Jr.'s art, so I was big into it then. I thought it was great. I think the greatest comic book thing of all time is the early 90s Batman cartoon. It is so well written. And you can watch it as an adult, and it's interesting. It's like a crime procedural. Sometimes, it's actually it's not just for little kids. It's probably a little sophisticated for kids, to be honest. Beautifully illustrated, and I got to work with those guys. Paul Dini is the writer, one of the writer creators of that cartoon, and he wrote the Arkham City, the hit video game, like about 10 years ago. And we did an Arkham City miniseries comic, and I got to do art for that.
Oh wow!
You
Was that the cartoon? Wasn't Luke Skywalker the voice of
The Joker,
of the
yeah,
Joker?
yeah. And I got to,
Mark
you know
Hamill.
what? I told you this all started for me for drawing Star Wars. And I got to work on a Star Wars comic, one of the best-selling Star Wars comics of all time, in 2013 or 14, written by Brian Wood, illustrated by Carlos de Anda, who lives here, and then I colored that one. And I got to work on that for Dark Horse Comics for 20 issues. We did on that one. So that was a dream come true for me to work on stuff like that, because
Oh, cool.
that's where it all started. So I have a lot of fond memories of comics. I guess it would be Spider-Man for me and Batman. I really like them. I like my own characters better. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I've got some really fun characters.
Tell us about it. One of your tell us about.
Well, okay, so I'm doing Dean Cain, All American Lawman. He's
Yeah.
basically your Indiana Jones, James Bond kind of guy. But then my next book that I'm writing and drawing and doing the whole thing myself is basically a 1990s Van Damme movie, right? It's called Beef Law, and it's Max Volkov. He's the world's elite underground tournament fighter. He fights in illegal underground kumites in Hong Kong, some of that, and he's forced to fight in these deadly tournaments because his father has gotten in trouble with the Chinese and Russian mafia that control Hong Kong underworld and stuff. And it's all action packed like that, but you add in the supernatural-ish or the sci-fi kind of element, like Street Fighter. They have powers that can throw a fireball.
Yeah.
All the characters in this have powers like that.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a really fun action thing with and I always do big political things where the world is being threatened, like millions of lives are gonna, they're gonna start World War III, or they're gonna do this or blow up that. So there'll be I don't want to say, but I've already written the plot out, and I'm having a lot of fun working on Beef Law. So
I think my favorite I had two favorite comic book characters, and everybody else was a distant second. And that was, we already talked about the Punisher,
okay,
and the other was Batman. And what do those two have in common?
they're both regular men that have just
Exactly.
trained really hard.
Exactly.
Right.
I really, really liked that.
Yeah.
And the thing I think I really like, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and the thing he and I both were talking about the Christian Bale Batman
Right.
series, and that whole movie, he didn't do anything that was unbelievable.
Right.
Everything was, a human could probably do that, and it was all very believable. And I liked that aspect of both those guys. So they weren't actually superheroes.
Right.
They were just guys.
Well, one thing, Lego did a study on the difference between boys and girls' imaginations. And they found that when boys play, if you give a boy a Batman figure, you imagine being Batman. You imagine you getting better and becoming stronger, faster, smarter. Girls do the opposite. This is why Barbie is a blank slate. And then they're like Barbie the veterinarian, Barbie the chef, Barbie the astronaut. What girls do when they imagine fantasy, this is scientific research from Lego. They did put millions of dollars to learn this. Girls bring the character down to them. What if Batman was me? with my flaws and my height and my strength and my this, but he was great anyway because he's me.
No,
So, right. And that's another thing that has ruined comic books. Too many female writers that write that way. That may sound sexist, but it's true, and there's scientific research to back that up. So a lot of the woke stuff with the female Jedi and the female this, that's why you don't like it, because it isn't for you. It's for women and the way they think. And there's nothing wrong with the way women think, but it's for them. Look at Top Gun Maverick. That's the 5th highest grossing movie of all time. Yeah. And it's not woke. It's an action adventure story. And they'll go, oh, but Tom Cruise is the first gay fighter pilot. Like, no one cares. He's just brave. Like, gay, straight. We don't care. He's just brave. Look at the Barbie movie. It is like kind of probably left-wing and feminist. I didn't watch it, but it was a hit because it's for women. So there's room for both. But when you take Batman and then make him woke when he isn't, that's wrong, and it's selfish, and it's ideologically driven. If you think you're a good writer and a creator, then make your woke thing and let it stand on its own. But they never do that. They always take something established. They take Robin Hood. They take Doctor Who. They take all these things because it has a built-in fan base.
So they must know, are there numbers, are you aware, that are women and little girls, are they reading more comic books? Because I mean, back in the 80s, there wasn't this.
They read more than ever, but not much. Not much. What I mean?
Well,
no.
If you had to guess the market share,
I would guess it's a single-digit number.
Wow.
This is action and adventures for men, and that's okay. It's a thing we like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
it's like women watching football. There's probably more women than ever watching football, but it's still probably just 5%.
But I think that speaks to, whether they're going after the market or they're trying to change the market. I think they're not going after the market.
No, they're trying to change.
They're trying to change
this ideology. This is a stupid ideology.
Okay, favorite 80s action flick?
Oh, easy. It's Bloodsport. 1988 classic with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Second place for me would be, you didn't ask, but it would be, is it 1990 or 91, Showdown Little Tokyo, Dolph Lundgren, Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
Third would be probably like Double Impact. Fourth, like Kickboxer. I told you, I do a Wednesday night show, well over 100 episodes now, called Double Impact. Me, Jericho Green, Shantan Jetty. We get up there, we review a movie. We're doing The Raid this week. We just did a Brandon Lee movie last week. We did Legacy of Rage. His first movie was a Hong Kong action movie from 1986. And we review the movie, but really we just break into improv comedy the whole time.
Okay, so where are you on... his name just fell out of my head.
What'd he do?
He used the pool cues like.
Oh, Steven Seagal?
Steven Seagal. Where are you on Steven Seagal?
I love Steven Seagal. His first 5 movies were amazing. Then something happened. He went off a cliff. But he comes out the gate with Above the Law.
Yeah.
That's an insanely good movie.
Yeah.
And then he's Out for Justice, Hard to Kill, and then what are the other? There's Under Siege, and I'm missing the fourth one. It's right. It's between those two.
There's
Marked for Death. With Screwface, the Jamaican killer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Those 5 movies.
Face.
Yeah.
They were like twins. Right?
Well, that's the great thing. When he kills the 35-year-old spoiler, when he kills the twin, he didn't know they were twins. Remember, he thought there was one guy?
Right.
And when he kills the twin, finally he's all, I hope they're not triplets.
Well, me and my high school buddy used to walk around. There was another line in that movie. Guy pulls up and he says, want some blow? And he goes, yeah, I'm going to blow your head off.
Right.
And he and I used to walk around like, I'm going to blow your head off.
No.
Those movies were great.
They were great. The first 5 were great, and he went insane or something after.
Well, okay, so
something happened.
I absolutely love...
I love Steven Seagal.
No, what I was going to say, I love people making fun of Steven Seagal.
Oh.
I think it's great.
It's heartbreaking to me because it was so cool at
the
first.
way he runs and the weird stuff he says now. I love that. I just absolutely... Every time an actor has a story about they're going to bash Steven Seagal, I click. I got to hear it. I don't know why. I love it. That reggae song he put out.
I just heard that again last week. What is that?
So bizarre.
What is it?
I love it.
I do admire that about him, that he just lives how he wants to live.
He definitely lives how he wants to live.
Just boldly. There was this one thing I saw. He was on TV in Russia, and it's all in Russian, and he was meeting some local farmers with. So I don't know what the context is, but he's meeting these, people, and they like, here's our bountiful harvest, and they had like some carrots, and he's still going around the farm with them, like, here's our horses, here's this, and he's literally just like, eating a carrot, walking around with them on camera, like, can you eat it later? Do you need to eat this right now? He's such a bizarre dude.
My favorite action flick from the 80s, everybody that listens to the show knows Red Dawn.
Wolverines.
Oh my gosh.
Great.
I don't even. It's a documentary. It's
Right.
not even a. It's not an action flick. I should put it in the documentaries.
Right. They remade it, and then like the
I
CCP
like
got
talking about that.
the CCP got mad and made them change it from Chinese to Korean or something.
North Koreans, yeah.
Yeah. Mark Schlereth, who I love, not Hall of Famer, should be 3-time Super Bowl champion, Denver Broncos, Redskins. He was in that movie as the football coach at the beginning.
Oh, really?
So I've heard him talk about it because I listen to Denver sports radio like every day at my house. And I've never seen the movie though. I heard him all excited about filming it like 10 years ago, and then like it never came out, and then it finally came out and nobody saw it. And
What's his name was in it, right? The main guy was the guy that played Thor, right?
Chris Hemsworth or Liam Hemsworth or one of those
the
kids.
Hemsworths,
I don't know.
yeah.
I never saw this new Red Dawn. The old one is great. I mean, how can you beat stuff like Roadhouse? You know, Patrick
Yeah.
Swayze,
Yeah.
and how can you beat like Action Jackson and these
Did you
movies?
see MacGruber?
No, I
Oh my
would see the
gosh.
skits on SNL, but I never saw the movie.
Promise me you'll watch MacGruber.
Okay.
If since you're such a fan, the first time I saw it, I was like, what did I just watch? I'm never getting that hour and a half back. And then about 3 days later, it hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing's it's a genius movie, and it is hilarious. I've seen it a dozen times. It is extremely hilarious. It is. They're not. It's an homage to everything we're just talking about.
Right.
And what made me think about it, his signature move is that he rips out throats from.
Oh, that's fun.
Roadhouse,
From Roadhouse,
right?
yeah.
You know? Anyway,
They're making a new Roadhouse, and I'm actually in it.
what?
Kid you not.
Tell me about that.
Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be Dalton, the main character from Roadhouse. And in it, he's like a UFC fighter and stuff, I guess. And I went to UFC 285 or whatever when John Jones beat Cyril Gane like 6 months ago or 8 months ago, whenever that was. I went to Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena, right there by the MGM and the New York Casino. And in the crowd, Jake Gyllenhaal comes out. Like a fighter, while we're in between some regular fights, he comes out. They tell us all to scream and cheer, and they put him on the thing, and he's doing this. And so I like to tell people I'm in that movie because I'm in the crowd. I'm in the crowd of 18,000. You probably won't see me.
So he's playing Dalton. Who's playing?
I don't know the
who's
rest.
playing
I don't know the rest of the story, but I know that that's what I know. What I told you is what I know.
What was that dude's name? The older dude. He just passed away, I think.
Oh my gosh, what is his name?
That he was in
Right.
everything.
He's in everything. Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott.
Beef. It's what's
Yeah,
for
I wonder
dinner.
who plays that.
What's for dinner?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder who'll be that. I hope they don't woke it up. Ugh.
Well, how do you woke that? God.
Well, Dana White, the owner of the UFC, he is not woke at all.
Not
You
at
know
all.
what I mean, the way he runs his business, the way he talks, all that. He's good friends with Trump. Trump's always sitting next to him at the fights. So if he has anything to do with the production of the movie, hopefully it won't be woke.
I don't know how Gyllenhaal is. I don't really pay attention to him. I mean, he was in Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, there you
that was
go.
that was fairly woke.
I guess, yeah.
Or at least kind of right at the. When did that come out? Was that?
That was like 2006.
Okay,
I
so it was
mean,
a little before all that. But it was
long time
kind of anyway.
Yeah.
Gabe, this was wonderful, man.
All
I
right.
really, really respect everything that you've done. I think that you're probably one of the most thoughtful
Thank you.
guests that I think I've ever interviewed.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you clearly have put thought behind, what your opinions are, and the conclusions you've come to, and I can tell that it isn't just an article that you read and then adopted it
no.
as your own opinion. I can tell that this took a lot of quiet time, where you're in your head working things out, coming to your own conclusions, and I think that's rare. I think
Thank
it's a
you.
lot more rare these days than people think. I think that the usual is people, again, they read an article and they're like, oh, well, that's my opinion now, and they didn't actually, but you have a foundation and and have come to your own conclusion. I think it's extremely respectful,
Thank you.
extremely rare. I think that you're a philosopher warrior, my friend.
Thank you.
It's very, very interesting listening to you, and I'm
Well,
glad I got a chance to.
This is funny. To kind of expand on what you just said there. My name, Gabriel Abdulati Eltaeb. That's my full name. My father's name is Abdulati. And what my name would mean, if you had the meanings of it, Gabriel's messenger. That's Jesus, it's God's messenger.
Yep.
Abdulati is the seeker of the truth, and Eltaeb is a servant of God. So I am the messenger who seeks the truth and is a servant of God.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, I think my life does reflect that, you know.
There's so much more I'd love to talk to you about. I would love to talk to you about what it was like being. How much time you got? You gotta go. You gotta go, don't you?
No. I can go at 3:30.
Tell me what it was
Let me
like.
check some. 2 seconds here. Let me check some because I'm supposed to go on this other podcast, but I think they're going to go for a few hours. So let me just. I'll look for the private message here. Give me 2 seconds. This is terrible radio.
That's okay. We'll edit this out.
But ask me. I'm listening. Ask me.
We'll edit this out. So we'll make it.
Okay.
What was it like growing up? You grew up in San Diego?
I was born in Greeley, Colorado.
Okay.
Lived there until my 8th birthday. About a week after that, we moved here. My parents got divorced right then. And we moved to Rancho Bernardo in 1986 when I was 8 years old. That's North County, San Diego.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Colorado, San Diego, what was it like growing up? Half Libyan, half Mexican.
What the hell is water?
Really? You didn't
I'm
think
American.
about it?
No.
You just it didn't
Nope.
occur to you.
We're normal people. We're just people here.
No,
We're
'cause-
just Christian American people. That was my culture. My culture is what I do. It's not my genes. Which one of my hands is Mexican? Which one's Libyan? Right? This stuff doesn't exist. All this Filipino, black, Chinese, none of it exists. It's all in our heads. It's all make believe. We're all so much more human than we are whatever race we are. It's ridiculous.
So
and when you're multiracial like that,
Yeah.
and when your father's Muslim, your mother's Christian, you can see through this crap from a mile away.
Wow.
That's why
So
identity
what
politics
crap do you
doesn't
see?
work. The identity politics doesn't work on me. What am I? Am I Mexican? I've been to Mexico a few times. I don't even really speak Spanish. I speak enough to get around down there. Am I Libyan? I know like 3 Arabic words. You know, like what? I'm American, but America's an idea. It's not a race.
So there wasn't like a side that rejected you or a side that wouldn't accept you, or there wasn't like you didn't grow up thinking, gosh, where do I fit in?
I always just been very sure of what I am. I'm me. And I believe that about everyone. I believe everyone has the potential to do anything they want to do in life. Because, like I told you before, art is not a magic power, it's just scientific patterns. And when you tell artists that, they get mad because they love to be snotty and arrogant about how talented we are. And when I call my friends out and say, you're not talented, you worked really hard. That's why they don't like that. They don't like hearing that. They want to be a special boy.
They want to be special.
They want to be special boy. That they're better than you because they could draw. I'm like, they could draw as good as you if they practice for 20 years like you did.
But I think most of the time the narrative when someone is, it comes from 2 different cultures. Mom's a totally different culture from dad. The narrative tends to be that you didn't fit in and you whatever. But why were you different? Or why did you not have that experience? What inside you prevented you, or what outside you influenced you to not
Being
have
Christian.
that experience?
Being Christian, because all that matters is God. All that matters is loving your fellow people. You don't have time for nonsense of you're Chinese, so I got a problem with you. What does that even mean? My very, very best friend, the one I took home from the bus when we were 9, Filipino guy. I never even knew what a Filipino was until I met him. There's no Filipinos in Colorado that I ever met when I was little. I'm sure they're there now. But 1985, when I was in 2nd grade in Greeley, Colorado, I never even heard of the Philippines as a country. I didn't know it existed. I meet the guy, go to his house. All right, they had some weird food I'd never seen before. I liked it. It was tasty. It didn't matter to me. Like, this isn't something I learned. It's something how I am. It doesn't make sense to me to care what anyone is that way because I don't believe in it. I think it's silly. I think you are what you do. Martin Luther King said it. He said the content of your character,
Right.
not the color of your skin. The color of your skin is irrelevant. I didn't change the colors of my skin, right?
Right.
It can be lighter and darker, right? So like, who cares? It's foolishness to me.
So did someone instill this in you?
No, this is just something I know from living. It's just my grandpa didn't we're Mexican, so white people hate us. Why would he? My grandpa wasn't an idiot. Why would he say something like that? Only an idiot would say that. And that's why when DC Comics asked me to do it by making woke books to say, hey, black people, white people hate you. Well, my grandpa already disabused me of that nonsense when I was little. I know it isn't true. By the way, they lived. They didn't act funny about it. Oh, he's a Jew. He's Russian. No one cares. It's so boring. The action movie show I do on Wednesday nights. The co-host is a black guy. Other guy is a Austrian, Puerto Rican, Indian guy. Indian, not Native American Indian. Who cares? I don't pick my friends based on that. I do not care. Yeah, I told my black friend, because we talk, he's very conservative Navy veteran. I told him, you being black is the least interesting thing about you. It is. Who cares? You're You're a father, you're a Navy veteran, you're conservative, you're this, you're a great comedian, you're great at improv and voices. And like all of that is way more interesting than the content of melanin in your skin. That's so silly to me.
Well, I got to tell you, I went to high school in Hawaii,
Right.
and
Did you get picked on for being a howlie?
not really. I was a big kid.
Okay, so
So
they thought maybe.
yeah, I'll tell you to be honest, I was a big kid with curly hair who got really dark in the sun.
They didn't know.
So they were like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
I think. I mean, I think it was pretty easy for people to pick out that I was a white kid, but I didn't know. To be honest with you, I in Hawaii met some of the best people I've ever met, but I came from Florida, North Florida,
Okay.
and I got to tell you, it's interesting to me because the local Hawaiians and kind of the good old boys in Florida wouldn't have liked each other. If you put them in the same room, they would have hated each other.
Right.
They were the same person, though. You know what I mean? Like you guys are so similar.
I don't know.
But anyway, I had a friend who was half Korean. I had another friend who was Japanese and Thai. I had another friend that was half Japanese. I had, I loved it. I just thought it was great. Everybody, in Hawaii, the stereotypes were kind of these lighthearted,
Yeah, it's a joke.
jabs and everything. And it was great. It was wonderful.
Right.
And then I moved to California, and all that went out the window.
Right. There's no laughing about it.
There's no laughing about
Like
it.
we on my Wednesday night show, we have a character. We have characters come on the show, and it's just us doing voices. And Hulk Hogan is the main sponsor of the show, brother. And that's a whole made up thing we have. But we have a new character, Jericho, the black Navy guy, called the Japan the Man. And he does like a horrible Japanese accent.
Yeah.
And I ask him all these questions, and I never understand him. And then Japan Man gets mad at me. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Now, an idiot liberal would say, "You guys are racist against Japanese people." It's a joke, guys. It's just a joke.
Yeah.
The joke is, I don't understand him and he gets mad. Like, it's a joke. We don't hate Japanese people. It's a joke. And I don't know why people got, and I think it's virtue signaling. They want to act like, well, I'm not racist and I hate your racist joke. Look how great I am. Praise me. And it always comes back to that satanic, make yourself a god. Everyone praise him.
You know what I blame it on? I blame it on the success of the movie series Revenge of the Nerds. Because
Okay.
it's like Revenge of the Nerds came out, suddenly everybody wanted to be a nerd. I think it was a little bit better world when the jocks ran the
Sure.
school. You know what I mean? Because these nerds were like it's like the weird kid. Remember in high school there was like 2 or 3 weird kids in the back of the class.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then there were like the popular kids, and then there was everybody else.
All right.
And it's like the weird kid in the back of the class took over the country.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the jocks, it was like, all right, these guys are kind of jerks, and the captain of the cheerleading squad is kind of shallow and kind of whatever. But at least there was like an order. The kids in the back of class, Revenge of the Nerds, is now it's this weird, theater group country where nothing makes any sense. Everybody's a whiner. You can't say anything without someone crying. And I
think
blame
everything we've spoken about for the last over the hour plus, I've really buried the lead on all of it. I've mentioned it tangentially, but by mentioning my father and my grandfather and all that. But that in physics they're looking always for the universal field theory. They want to connect time, nuclear force, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, magnetism, electricity. They want to have an equation for all of it at once, like the unified field theory. You know about this?
Not as much as you do. That's wow. Okay.
Well, the universe is energy fields. That's all it is, right? There's an electrical field, there's gravitational fields. It's just whatever. Imagine like a TV screen. You know the pixels in a screen?
Right.
But imagine that in 3D, in 4D, in every direction.
Right.
That's what some people theorize the universe is it's pixels of energy that can be excited to different states, and it's all related as one big ocean of existence.
Wow.
Unified field theory. The unified chaos theory of culture, the unified woke theory that I've come up with, can be boiled down to one thing: fathers. That is the difference where the rubber meets the road in the last 50 years. The fact that we have destroyed father culture. Remember I mentioned Al Bundy and Homer Simpson, Archie Bunker. You see it start to leak in there. And when we have a divorce rate of like, some people say 50, some people say less. It depends on the race or whatever. But
it's high.
It's too damn high. And no fault divorce. That was signed into law by Reagan. Right? When he was governor, he signed that in the 60s or whatever. And it's just like, and then nationally, I don't remember when they allowed no fault divorce, but ever since you destroyed the family, you destroyed everything. because children need fathers. And when they get past the nursery, toddlers, little kid stage, they need their fathers more than they need their mothers for their mental well-being. And I'll tell you, scientific research again has shown children raised with a mother and a father have the best outcomes. When you're raised with a single mother, prison, teen pregnancy, all of it, every bad thing you can think of dropping out of high school, every bad thing you can think of skyrockets when you're raised with a single mother. Do you know what happens to kids when they're raised with a single father?
So,
They have the same outcome as being raised by a father and a mother.
wow.
Right? So the thing is, there's a sex difference between men and women that God created that is immutable. It doesn't matter what woke people say. It is unchangeable. It is immutable. You cannot defy this. Men are leaders. Women and children need men to lead them by being brave, by having honor, by doing the right thing, by having the ability to emotionally regulate. And what that means is no matter how I feel, I do the right thing. And women and children depend on us to provide and protect them.
Well, there's a local charity in town that I like a lot, and what they do is they go into a school. They have a bunch of trained volunteers that are all men. They go into a school and they say, "Look, Principal so and so, give us the worst 3 or 4." Right? There's always, the 3 or 4 that are causing all the problems, and they put them through this program, which is really rites of passage. They take them and they
Right.
go camping. They have to accomplish things, and they let them vent. And 85%, they have a huge success rate. Like they really have done a great
Right.
job over the last 25 so years. 85% of the boys that go through this, 85%
Right.
don't have a dad.
Right.
85%, which is huge.
I would say most people in the West do not have a father. They're either parents are divorced and they rarely see him, or the dad lives in the house and he's a coward and the mom wears the pants and okay, yes, dear, yes.
What Western culture or
West
of the United States?
West, the Western culture, Europe, America, like the Western world is completely a gynocracy. It's completely run with the feminine imperative. Everybody knows that. When they say smash patriarchy, there is no patriarchy. There's a matriarchy and it sucks. It doesn't work.
I hear that. Then I listen to guys. I listen to comics like Bill Burr,
Uh-huh.
and he talks about he was terrified of his dad. His dad,
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it feels like
But that's not a good father to terrorize your children. No one said to do that.
no one said to do
When
that.
you're loving, I said a man has to emotion regulate. So if I'm furious at my children and I want to scream and hit the kitchen table, that isn't being a good dad. There is a time to yell, there's a time to punish and all this and that, but you don't get yourself out of control. That's insane. That's stupid.
But I think that there's I don't want to go back to anything. I don't want what's current. I think that there's a better path. You know what I mean? I don't like you look at like that 70s show and the father Red. I mean, there's a reason that these stereotypes of dads in the 40s, 50s, 60s exist, because that's probably how a lot of men acted back then. I'm not sure that was great either. I think that there's a better path forward. I think there's a different path that is not what we have and not what we had, but something that we should aspire to.
Well, my quibble with that is we only know things through testing. There's epistemological knowledge and there's technical knowledge, right? So epistemological is book knowledge, theoretical, college learning. And by the way, I went to college. I was in the National Dean's List on a roll. So I'm not anti-college. I got straight A's for 4 years at the university, except for like 3 classes. But I think the problem with postmodernism is, because I think what you said is a pretty postmodern thing, is that we could just come up with something new. And I think the only way we know anything is through literally thousands and thousands, if not millions and millions of data points of testing. We know that those berries are dangerous because thousands of people ate them and died. So now we know that, right? Nicholas Nassim Taleb, he's an amazing philosopher about logic and mathematics and all that. He wrote these great books, The Black Swan, The Incerto. He wrote Procrustes Bad. He's an amazing philosopher. And he said when it comes to diet, he doesn't eat anything that isn't 1,000 years old. And it's not literally 1,000 years old,
Right.
but people have been eating it for 1,000 years because by then you know if it works or not. So to say there's a new way, well, what is the new way based on? The new way has to be based on thousands of years of human history. And we have seen what has done the most good for human beings. Brought people out of poverty, created peace, created the West, created the great things that America has done. It was the nuclear family and Christianity. That's what did it. It could have been anything else, but what happened is what happened.
I agree there, but I get the father and mother. I think it's
Right.
I don't think there's no way to argue that having both your father and mother, raise you is better. Period. Full stop. End of
Right.
story. No discussion. But I guess it's the way that father behaves.
Right.
I don't. If you have a father and mother there, and the father or the mother, if either parent is negligent or horrible or
Right. Of course.
trying to live up to some stereotype, that isn't healthy, I don't think that that's a good thing. So, and I don't really know how fathers were before World War II. You know what I mean? But the stereotype of fathers, since then,
But that stereotype is a lie from left-wing people in Hollywood who want to take down the father because their entire worldview is built on, I don't want to go to bed when dad said go to bed. Mm-hmm. So they lie and create Archie Bunker. They lie and create Homer Simpson. They lie and create Al Bundy. They lie and create Red on that 70s show. They lie about fathers and what they are because they're defiant, disrespectful little kids and they don't want to listen to daddy. That's, when McCarthy said that the communists invaded Hollywood, he was right. They made him out to be a loon. He was right. We lost the Cold War. I don't know if people know that. We lost it big.
How so?
Because the Cold War was a culture war. It wasn't a hot war in Vietnam or Korea. The Cold War was on your television and in your universities. And we lost that 800-0. We got destroyed by that because we let the communists overtake all our institutions. And now we are reaping that. Bitter fruit of that.
You're absolutely 100% right on. I mean, TV definitely used to be there. I saw a lecture once on Gilligan's Island, and how look, you're looking at the 8 deadly sins are represented in these characters, and every week you learn a lesson,
right.
On why you shouldn't be gluttonous, why you shouldn't be envious. And pointed out how, Gilligan's Island was just a wonderful, family oriented show that taught children how to behave as human beings. And that's definitely changed. Or I guess they still teach people what the lessons are.
Well, my favorite show is Little House on the Prairie. I love that show. I didn't ever watch it till 4 years ago. I'd never seen it. But my wife said she saw it, she was a little kid, and I saw it was on Amazon for free. So I watched 2 episodes. I'm like, oh, I really like this. I really like it. So I ended up watching all 9 seasons or 15 seasons or whatever over the course of a year and a half. I would watch a couple of them every night. And I think the world I want to get to in entertainment, because it's more entertaining because it's just a better quality of art, but B, it will inspire people, is Frank Capra's vision of Hollywood. It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
We could have went that way. That was the 30s, right? Or the 40s. And we could have went that way. And then right after that, the communists come into Hollywood, in the 50s. And they start writing all this nasty stuff. Think about what's permissible now on the radio and the television. Some of the topics they're brought. I remember, now there's a podcast, so I can speak a little bit here, right? Picking my kids up from middle school. It's 2009 or 10 or whatever. We're in the car and just the radio's on whatever station my wife or kids had left on. I'm picking up my kids, middle school, 12, 13, 3 in the afternoon. So kids are awake. They can hear the radio. Public radio station, whatever San Diego's hip-hop was. I hate hip-hop music, but it just happened to be on there. And I don't know the song. People listening probably know what it is. But the girl in the chorus or the verse of the song says, eat the booty like groceries.
I honestly can't believe it.
And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's 3 in the afternoon. There's kids in the car.
Yeah.
You can't say that on the radio in the middle of the day. When did we get okay with such filth like that?
That occurred to me. I'm flipping through Instagram, and there was this video, and there are these girls dancing to this song about snorting coke.
Why not?
You girls are 15.
Why not?
What is going on?
Right.
And
this is my universal field theory of fathers. Fathers put a stop to all this when they're good men themselves. When they're men of character themselves, they say, no, we don't do that. That's unacceptable. And the thing your father can do for you that your mother is incapable of doing is to build your self-esteem so you do not become a validation-seeking narcissist as an adult. Your mother, there's only a face a mother could love, right? Well, what is the implication there? That your mother will love you no matter what you earn to achieve anything.
Right.
Your dad's love, you earn it and you know it. His approval. And when you get your dad's approval growing up, when he's a good, dedicated father, what you don't do is become a virtue signaling leftist when you're an adult. Because when you say all that, I'm anti-racist, I'm anti-homophobic, all those virtue signal things, they don't really believe any of that crap. They say it to get applause that they never got from their father because they're still looking for that validation. And when you're a validation-seeking person, you're fundamentally dishonest and narcissistic. So we need fathers to give men and women, boys and girls, I guess, self-esteem. I coached football forever. I played it forever, then I coached my son in it. He played right down the street at La Jolla Country Day. They won state in 17 when he was a senior.
Oh, wow.
His buddy's on the Rams, the quarterback who was there with my son for 4 years. He's a wide receiver on the Rams right now. He caught passes yesterday when they played the Broncos.
Wow.
It's awesome. But when you look into kids' eyes when they're not good, and then they turn it around and they make a tackle and they do this, and you see that I believed in you and I pushed you. I was tough, and you did it. What that does for them eternally, you can't replace it. And that's what we have to have. Fathers. We have to have them. That's what's wrong with everything is fathers.
Well, sure,
sorry.
go ahead. No.
Look at the failure in society. The most dangerous crime-ridden neighborhoods are the ghetto and the barrio. What do those two things have in common when it comes to fathers? They don't got them. And those poor black kids, the boys, and the Mexican boys, what happens to them? Right? We know what happens. They get in a lot of trouble. They go to jail, violence, because they don't have a dad saying, you know what, I love you, son, and you're better than that, and you're capable of this. It's a crime what we're allowing to happen to those young guys. It's such hatred to those people to allow this to just go on. And everyone's like, yeah, whatever. You see the latest Netflix, whatever. Nobody cares. And it's like a building is on fire and no one's doing anything about it.
Or they're worse, pretending it's not on.
Right.
Pretending, it's not warm.
It's great to raise boys without a father. Yeah, it's turning out awesome, isn't it? They're going to prison, they're getting shot. What happens in Chicago every weekend? Yeah. Right? Dozens of these poor, and why was he? I don't care what he was up to. He's a kid, and it doesn't have guidance, and he matters. That was someone's little baby once. Well, right? Just a little innocent baby boy. Now he's dead.
And to your point, as you were talking a few minutes ago about fathers and men, and to your point, one of the things that really stood out in old comics, you'd have these macho guys that were very masculine, and they were but they also had empathy.
Right.
I think that I think of a bunch of examples where even the Punisher. Even the harshest guys, Batman, Punisher, certainly Superman, Peter Parker, all, Spider-Man, they all would display and teach empathy as well.
Right.
Which is, I think, a masculine trait that has been...
Of course.
That it's been portrayed as not masculine, which is completely and totally wrong. Right. Which brings us back to Archie Bunker, Red.
Right. Just making a joke out of men. And it's because they're defiant people that write that. They're evil people that write that. So they write, this is how fathers are. It's not true. There are bad fathers, sure. But in general, they're not bad, or we wouldn't have made it this far. We wouldn't have air conditioning and skyscrapers if most men were evil. It doesn't take many evil men to ruin things. But good men have to do something, and they have to stand up. And the time to stand up is well past. And, you need to, people listening, you need to do what I did. You need to... you need to get some action going here. Follow the law. I'm not saying anything crazy, but you need to get to work. Be a man. Go coach kids. Go do something. Make a difference. If you can make art like me, go and do it. We need to make the culture. You're never going to talk Disney and Warner Bros. Out of this garbage. You're not going to stop them. So we got to compete with them. And then that way we destroy them in the marketplace. You know what I mean? Legally, we just outsell them and they can be replaced. There was a time when they weren't here. Why can't we just replace them? But it's going to take the skill. And I'll tell you that's another thing conservatives screwed up. They said music and movies, all that's dirty. So then they decided not to participate for 5 generations in training people to be musicians and artists, illustrators, actors, dancers. So now all we have is filthy commie leftists super skilled at making art, and people love art. So there aren't people like Frank Capra offering It's a Wonderful Life anymore. The people like me that are trying, I'm flawed, but trying to be moral and uplifting, and are great artists and writers, we are very few. Most people are just leftists because most conservative families they threw the baby out with the bathwater when it came to learning to make art. The origins of Western art are religious. Look at the cathedrals, the Renaissance paintings, they're all religious in their theme, and they all celebrate their culture. Look at the art now, postmodern art denigrates its culture. It hates its own culture. You'll destroy it. People think it's just a comic. Oh, it's just a Star Wars show. Okay, see where that gets us in 30 years. See where it gets us. It isn't just a TV show. It's persuasion is what it is. And persuasion is going to get people to act.
That's excellent. I think let's end on that.
Okay.
Big Man Comics, bigmancomics.com.
Bigmancomics.com. I am the big man himself.
You certainly are. And go to his website, support his art, and support what he's trying to do. And Gabe, that was awesome, man.
Thank you. Yeah, get Dean Cain, All-American Lawman. If you love 80s and 90s action adventure, you will love this thing. We're pouring everything we have into it, and we're super highly skilled at what we do.
There you go.
So order it today.
Or order 2 and give one to your kid or grandkid.
Order 10. I won't stop you.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Gabe.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for watching this Magnum episode from Gun Owners Radio. Check out our other Magnum interviews with leaders in the Second Amendment community on our YouTube channel today. Don't forget to support our sponsors. Click on the links in the show notes and support the businesses that support your Second Amendment rights. Like and subscribe to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.